Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving right into a strategic, executive action plan for deploying Agentic AI. If you're an operational leader hyper-focused on ROI and, not blowing up your risk profile, this is exactly what you need. We're going to build a practical roadmap that gets your autonomous agents into production without wrecking your budget or failing compliance.
Just look at this number, 40%. Gartner predicts that by 2027, over 40% of agentic AI projects are just going to get scrapped. Why? Honestly, it boils down to massive cost overruns, fuzzy ROI, and totally weak risk controls. Teams just don't grasp the real cost and complexity of running these agents at scale until it is way, way too late.
And honestly, the darker side of this is even more staggering. An absolutely mind-blowing 88% of organizations are already reporting suspected or completely confirmed AI agent security incidents just in the past year alone. Yet somehow, fewer than 22% are actually giving each agent its own identity and audit trail. Guys, we're talking about massive, unmanaged liabilities roaming around your systems here. So, the house might feel like it's on fire right now, but don't worry, we've got a plan. Here is our 6-part roadmap. First, the AI agent failure crisis. Second, bounded autonomy and its 5 rules. Third, stopping the loop drift killer. Fourth, our 8-step deployment playbook. Fifth, ironclad security and audit trails. And finally, measuring real executive ROI. Let's get right into it. The AI agent failure crisis. So the AI models themselves, they actually aren't the problem. We really need to understand why these projects are failing so spectacularly right out of the gate. Look, most failures happen because teams take a super slick, unregulated demo, slap a live production label on it, and give a raw, totally untested agent right access to real databases. They're operating on shared API credentials, which means tracing a catastrophic 2 a.m. failure is basically impossible. Throw some unstructured, dirty input data into that mix? Yeah, you've suddenly got agents making highly confident multi-step mistakes across your entire department. Moving to part 2, bounded autonomy and the 5 rules. The fix here isn't trying to make your agents smarter. It's actually about putting them on a really strict leash using a framework called bounded autonomy. Think of this as your agent's constitution. These 5 rules mean agents can gather information freely, and they can suggest actions freely. They can even go ahead and execute low-risk reversible tasks on their own. But here is the absolute game changer. Rule number 4, you must force human approval before any sensitive or irreversible action happens. And rule 5, log every single action. Approved, blocked, doesn't matter. By building code models and guardrails right into your system prompt to enforce this, you shrink your operational risk dramatically. Part 3, stopping the loop drift killer. Now, even with those guardrails in place, there's this nasty technical anomaly that acts as a silent budget killer. It's called loop drift, and it's a massive headache. This happens when an agent decides a completed task, like say a summary, just isn't quite right. So it misreads its own termination signal and just redoes the step. Over and over, it loops endlessly until your entire monthly API budget is literally burned to the ground. To stop this cold, you have to implement monitoring scripts, specifically hard step limits and repeated call detection, directly into the agent's code. All right, part 4, the 8-step deployment playbook. To dodge pitfalls like loop drift and actually build a genuinely secure system, you need to follow this exact 8-step practical roadmap. In phase 1, step 1, pick exactly one narrow job. We're talking about qualifying inbound leads, not running the whole marketing department, okay? Step 2, feed it clean, live data using real-time search APIs. Step 3 is choosing your development environment. And step 4 is adding a single execution engine. Let's zoom in on step 3 for a second. When you're deciding where your agent is actually going to live, you've got some great options. Go with Replit if your team needs raw code control. A real IDE and an in-browser terminal. On the flip side, Lovable is your go-to if you've got non-developers who just want a really sleek, polished internal UI without ever having to touch the underlying code. Both are awesome, they just serve completely different team structures. And for step 4, your execution runtime. You'll be looking at powerful engines like Manus or Agent Concourse. Both of these let your agent take complex, multi-step autonomous actions. But listen up, here is the golden rule. Pick exactly one.
Seriously, do not run both on the same task unless you want an absolute debugging nightmare where you have zero clue which agent did what.
Okay, moving into phase 2. Step 5 locks the whole thing down by verifying outputs through fact-checking tools. Step 6, you have to define one rigid success metric before you even write a single prompt. Step 7 is setting up cryptographic hash logs for total, unbroken traceability. And finally, Step 8, you need to purposely trigger failure modes, like loop drift. Test it on purpose so you can validate that those monitoring scripts actually work before you ever go live.
So here is a totally screenshot-worthy look at the essential 10-tool stack you need to pull this entire framework together. We're talking orchestration with Make, live data with Firecrawl, prompt testing with Promptimize AI, the whole shebang. You can hand this exact stack straight to your engineering managers to start building today, which keeps you from wasting precious budget on redundant, overlapping platforms. Part 5. Ironclad Security and Audit Trails. Look, to survive a rigorous audit committee and actually comply with strict regulations, your agent absolutely needs enterprise-grade security. Research points out something amazing here. Simply applying a least privilege by default access model drops your agent security incident rate from a scary 76% down to just 17%. You have to give the agent the bare minimum access its one specific job requires, not the super admin access that's just convenient for developers later on. And to meet intense compliance demands, like, say, the EU AI Act's 72-hour incident reporting window, you have got to apply a unique machine identity model for every single agent. Absolutely no shared API keys. You guarantee total traceability using validated security hash logs, where any tampered record instantly breaks the cryptographic chain. Oh, and you need hard-coded kill switches to actually halt execution. Sending a Slack message asking someone to casually pause the bot is not a security protocol. Finally, Part 6, Measuring Real Executive ROI. As a manager or operational leader, you have to prove the system is actually saving money and generating real economic value. I absolutely love this quote. Vibes don't survive a budget review. It hits the nail right on the head. You cannot rely on a gut feeling that an agent is helping. If you can't calculate the actual savings in hard numbers, you're just funding a science experiment that's going to end up in that 40% failure pile we talked about earlier. The true ROI formula is actually really straightforward. You have to measure the time saved against the API cost and the manual rework. Track the time saved per task, compare those pre- and post-deployment error rates, and meticulously measure the human review time. Because think about it, if your agent saves you 20 minutes but demands 2 solid hours of manual cleanup, you didn't automate a thing. You just relocated the work and tacked a hefty API bill on top of it. That is a massive financial failure. So take this strategic roadmap back to your team, take a hard look at your current AI setup, and ask yourselves, is your AI agent operating like a disciplined, strictly managed employee? Or is it an unchecked, massive operational liability just waiting to explode? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this helps you build safer, highly effective production agents.